Welcome to Newsletter Guru TV, your show with a boatload of smart marketing and business building advice, and a little fun along the way.
This episode of Newsletter Guru TV is brought to you by Jim Palmer's famous No Hassle Newsletters Master Reseller Program. As a marketing coach or business consultant, you know that the fastest way to help your clients increase their profits is by getting more repeat business and more referrals from their current customer. And the best way to do that is with a monthly customer newsletter. Now, instead of simply recommending that your clients use a customer newsletter, you can provide them with an amazing done-for-you newsletter. The No Hassle Newsletter Master Reseller Program is a complete turnkey newsletter system that solves your client's biggest need, makes you a marketing hero, and also adds a lucrative new revenue stream for your business. Become a master reseller today at www.nohasslenewsletters.com.
Hey everybody, it's Jim Palmer, the Newsletter Guru, coming to you once again from Chicago at Info Summit. Ran into another great friend of mine, Tony Wroblewski. How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. In full disclosure, Tony's in my mastermind group, and we've been friends for a few years. Now, one of the reasons I love coming to live events, as I always mention, is you run into some really smart people who are making it happen despite what's going on out there and all the negative chatter and things like that. So Tony does a couple things. First of all, he's a very, very well-known speaker. He's out speaking all over the country. You're seeing pictures on Facebook every week. You must have some amazing miles on the plane.
We stay busy.
Yeah. And the other thing Tony does, which is kind of how we got connected a few years ago, he is the founder and president of Mind Capture. Is it University or just Mind Capture Group?
Mind Capture Group.
Thank you.
No
Mind Capture Group. And Tony does something which I love to do. He interviews really, really successful people every month. So let's talk about a couple things because, you know, with my launch of my book, Stop Waiting for It to Get Easier, Create Your Dream Business Now, you are one guy who is not waiting for it to get easier. You are out there making it happen on a couple different levels. So which one do I want to talk about first? Let's talk about Mind Capture Group because that's where we originally met. You've interviewed some really, really high-powered people, famous people. How did you get started doing that?
I think the simplest thing for your audience, Jim, and we just interviewed you last week. So
I told you interview powerful and amazing people.
And Jim has been interviewed twice by me, and I think what it is, you just get started and you have to do your homework. You have to pick up the phone and make some contacts.
Right.
And then if you do a good interview, people say, we've heard good things about you, and you just build off of that. So it's a momentum play.
And I can think the second thing you named was you got to pick up the phone and make contacts. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah.
So you just got to take that step, that leap of faith.
Absolutely. And I think the thing, too, is to be passionate about it. I've always had a goal 5-10 years ago is to get paid to read books. I love reading. I'm kind of geeky, like, I read 5 or 6 books this week. Never to boast. I love to learn. So I thought, how do I monetize that to get paid for it? So I get like a double win. It's almost like if they knew I'm getting paid to read books, what a great country.
What a great country.
Yeah.
You know, you told me something else a few years ago when we first met. You said it's easy to get people who are really famous when they're launching a book because then they want to be
Absolutely.
interviewed.
I knew, Jim, for example, we interviewed you a second time recently because you had a book come out. So there's promotional windows as a fellow author that there's the first 30 to 40 days you get times that you have to do interviews.
Okay.
You and I know there's some bad interviews.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh boy. You hang up the phone and go, who was that blockhead? And there's some you're like, that was really good.
Can't wait for the interview to end, and then there's others you really want to stretch out.
So, for example, we got John Stossel from Fox Television.
That was
he was
cool.
on 2020 with Barbara Walters and Peter Jennings for years. I mean, huge audience of 10 million people.
Yep.
We got him simply because he put a book out, and he had about a 30-day window where he's doing book signings, and New York mandated he had to do interviews. So when I got through to them, simply 5 or 6 years of hard work, they said, who have you interviewed? And I mentioned a whole bunch of names. They said, all right, he must be legitimate. They didn't even back check, and they just thought, all right, all these names can't be wrong. They've sold billions of books, you know, Mark Victor Hansen, Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy. All right, we'll get you on the phone.
Wow.
So we got 30 minutes with him, but you know, that took 5 or 6 years of work, knowing a couple tweaks to do it, and actually having the gumption to reach out and get a couple handlers to convince that maybe this guy knows what he's talking about. So it's persistence.
And part of it is also, you know, just taking the shot.
Yeah.
You know, I got Kevin Harrington to write the forward to my book, and I was like, I wanted to have a big name celebrity write the forward to my book, and I just took the shot.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Jim, you're absolutely right. There's a great quote from Wayne Gretzky that echoes that. You always miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed at some of the people that have said, okay, great, we'll let you interview him or her, and they don't even back check. And it's like, wow, if you catch them at the right time. Brian Tracy, for example, one of our heroes, turned me down for 3 years.
Really?
And I thought, okay, his publicist team was very professional, so Brian's got a good team. timing was wrong. So I thought, okay, he's got a new book that just came out. Circle back. Well, perfect. Brian's got a new publicist. Sarah was her name from Little Bird Publicity. It was one of those names in New York. She said, perfect. We'll get you right on the phone with Brian. That was too easy.
Perfect.
So timing.
So let's circle back on the second half of the show on talking about your speaking. You are out speaking all the time. I know speaking from the stage is a good thing. How did you get into that, and how do you keep going?
You know, we're at the Info Summit here in Chicago right now, and Dan Kennedy, I was very fortunate, almost like a miracle, wrote the foreword of my first book at 30.
Oh, wow.
I had no clue that that would open up so many doors. I love to speak. I was in Toastmasters for over a decade. And
Weren't you like the highest Grand Poobah
I got
rating or
close. I was
something?
almost like they call it like a black belt is like DTM. But I was very fortunate in 07 to present international in Phoenix, where I got to talk to Toastmasters from 100 some odd countries.
Wow.
But I love speaking and training to help people. And a lot of the keynotes that I do now for chambers of commerce, business groups, it's really education packed, where people go, man, you teach a lot, but then you've got books and resources. So I always try to give more value, and I get a lot of referrals in the corporate and chamber markets. So a lot of speakers call me and say, how do you do it? I'm like, well, you got to teach.
Yeah.
I mean, you've spoken at my events, and Jim, you give great value, you tell great stories. And when you do that, you get lots of referrals.
And, great mutual friend of ours, Bob Berg, says
Yep.
if you're a giver, if you go out there and really give some great content, they're going to want more.
Absolutely.
And so you give great content. You are also a great storyteller, and then people want to pick up your books, and of course that would lead to other things down the road. So that's a reason to jump on the plane all the time, which I'm really growing to dislike.
Well, the thing is, I've watched you do a couple programs in our event recently, and you've got a gift. You got a standing ovation in San Diego. You didn't ask me to say that, but I was so proud. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got a standing ovation, Bob Berg.
I think that's because I cried on stage, but
No, your story was real. I mean, that's it. That was not made up. You can't manufacture authenticity.
right.
Let me repeat that. You cannot manufacture that. People know or they don't know. I enjoy speaking. I know a lot of people say, don't you miss your family? Oh, absolutely. But when you're passionate, if my kids watch this interview someday and they go, all right, Dad, what made you do it? I love what I do. I get to help millions of people. And I know there's time away from the kiddos, but I want them to pursue their passion with that intensity and say, you know what? People try to guilt you, they suppress you, make you feel bad. If you really go at it, you'll work through it. You'll make a way.
That's awesome. So stop waiting. Just get out there and create your dream business.
Pretty good book, I hear.
You're a good man.
Good to see
How
you.
can people find out more about you?
Well, it's really easy. Mindcapturegroup.com. Again, www.mindcapturegroup.com.
Okay, cool. And is that the main site, even if people want to hire you as a speaker? Or?
That's pretty much where they can find me, and we do other events, but they can Google my name, but Mind Capture Group's easier than Tony Rubleski.
Yes. Tony, what?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for coming on Newsletter
you're
Guru
welcome.
TV. Hey, folks, if you found some value out of this week's episode, I'd very much appreciate it. Keep your words going, Jim. It's almost lunchtime. Appreciate it very much if you would click the share button and share this great content. Introduce Tony and some of my smart marketing and business building advice to other people in your news feed. And keep adding more value. I always talk about that. I'm always impressing that upon you. Keep adding more value to your core program. If it just stays, you're going to keep people happy, but you got to keep kind of reinventing yourself. We're learning about differentiation here, how you got to be different. But when you add more value, people will stay longer. When they stay longer and they're happier and they're raving fans, they're going to spend more and refer more. And that's a great way to build your business. And go out there and do something nice for somebody today. Put a smile on their face. Could be a complete stranger. Wave them into traffic. You'll get home 30 seconds later. It's not going to kill you. Somebody comes up short at the register, throw a dime on the table or $1, whatever it's going to take. Just be nice to people. One random act of kindness at a time per day from you is going to make the world a much nicer place. Be sure to check out Stick Like Glue Radio. It is the only podcast dedicated to helping you create an everlasting bond with your customers so they stay longer, spend more, and refer more. I'm going to have to wrap this up because I'm looking at the cameraman and I think he's falling asleep because we've done this too many times today. Oh, there's a blooper, but I'll just leave it in. And be sure to get my book, Stop Waiting for It to Get Easier, Create Your Dream Business Now, at stopwaitingbook.com. My name is Jim Palmer. I'm the host of Newsletter Guru TV, and I'm committed to helping you build a more profitable business faster. Until next week, Tony, thanks again, buddy. Thanks for
You're
coming
welcome.
on.
Good to see you.
And we'll see you next week for another great episode of Newsletter Guru TV. You take good care.